All right, so we have our needle and we have our earring hook and we have 2 color of beads that we'll be working with. I'll be showing you guys how to do a brick stitch earring. And with brick stitch, we are going to be decreasing every time we start a new row. All right, so we're going to start with our ladder stitch, which is basically our foundation. And we are going to just start with some brown. So I have 2 beads. So this is interesting. When it comes to beads, some beads are slightly bigger than others, and I really try to find beads that are the same. So this one slightly looks smaller than this one. Especially for foundation, you really want all your beads to be looking around the same. It's pretty rare, but it happens. So now these 2 kind of look the same. So I'm going to start with these. I have my left hand holding the beads while I bring my right hand threading outward. Going back through the first bead, pulling with my right. If you're right-handed, if you're left, you're going to pull with your left. Now, I'm going to leave about a lengthy tail, about roughly this much. And right now, I have them side by side, the beads. Now, my thread is coming upward, and now I'm going to go downward on the second bead. So I personally like to go around each bead just for security. So I'm going to go back up the first bead, and I'm going to come back down the second bead again. I wouldn't recommend doing more than twice because then the thread starts to get really thick in these beads. And later on in the earring, we're going to have to go through these beads again. So now I'm going to pick up my third bead. This one is looking like the same size. I'm going to go ahead and this is the interesting part. So my bead is coming, my thread is coming downward. Now I'm going to go down the second bead. And now I'm going to go back up the third bead. From here, I will not be securing the thread because I've already gone through this second bead maybe like 3 times. Anything more than that, I don't want to do personally. Picking up one more bead. And I will actually be going up the third bead, not down. So you always want to go the opposite direction of the thread. So since my thread is coming up the opposite direction, I'm going to go the other way. Now I'm going to go back down through the fourth bead. And this is the same rhythm throughout all 9 beads. And it is going to feel a little bit wobbly, but it will become sturdy the more you bead. Now my thread is coming down this bead. I will go the other side down the bead. And I will go next to this bead and go up it. So we are at number 5. and I'll come back when I'm at 9. All right, so now we are on bead 9. We finished our ladder row, and now I'm actually going to secure the last 2 beads by going around it one more time. So your thread should end upward. So this is the beginning long thread that we started with that's facing down, and then the last bead, the thread should be going upward. Now we're going to grab 2 beads because this is how we start every single row. We start with 2 beads always, and I try to hold this ladder row because it is a little wonky. Try to hold it as close as I can to these 2 beads, and I'm going to go under this thread. So this is considered thread bridge. So these little white threads that connect each bead are considered a bridge thread, or a thread bridge, whichever. So 2 beads, and I'm going to go always into the second bridge, not the first because we're decreasing. We're going to go into the second, pulling. This is what you'll end up with. Now we're going to bring this thread over your finger, and I like to move my piece towards me. So going this way, and I will go through bead 2 and 1, and I will pull. So this is just securing the first 2 beads. Now my thread is coming out of bead number 1, and I'm just going to go back under bead number 2, from under bead number 2. I'm going to pull, and now you're going to flatten these 2 beads, pull, and then you have a flat start to your row. After finishing your 2 beads, you're going to grab 1 bead, go through the 3rd bridge, and so on. After this, you're going to always grab just 1 bead. The only time you grab 2 beads is when you start a row. And the 4th bead, you'll go through the 4th bridge, and so on. I just finished the row, and now I'm going to start a new row. So this is how it looked when I finished the last bead on the 2nd row. And so what you're going to do now is you're going to actually flip your piece over. So from here, you want this thread to be close to you. You flip. And then you hold here. You're going to grab 2 more beads because I'm starting a row. I always like to pull on this thread and bring over my finger and hold with my 3rd. Just kind of gives me like a good anchor. Now I feel like I have more foundation going on with my 1st and 2nd row. Feels a little bit more sturdier. And so now we're going to go into the 2nd bridge to start a new row. So if this happens, gets a little caught up, I just bring my needle under, pull, and it should come loose like that. I suggest pulling the thread slowly just to get a hang of things first. Because if you pull too fast, like I just did, it can get a little knotted up. So I pulled through. I'm going to go underneath the first one to secure it. And now I just secured it and I don't have to do anything else after that except just grab my first row. I'm going under the third bridge. So I'm just going to go all the way doing the same thing, having the same stitch. And this is the part obviously where you follow your design. If you wanted to put like a circle or specific design you had already drawn out in your graph, and you can just follow along. But for this video, I'm just creating a one colored top of my earring and then another color for my bottom of my earring. So I notice that I always do this because if it's out here and I'm trying to get under it, it doesn't have structure and it can be loose and you'd be there trying to get in. So I always like to bring the thread over, hold it down, really station it, really keeps the thread down in place, and then you can thread easier. Whereas if I also, at the end of the thread, I always like to kind of pull a little bit. So now this thread, I want this thread closer to me. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my piece towards me. And then I'm going to start a new row. But this is basically the foundation of an earring for the brick stitch. Finally finished, and I've ended up on my last row. So this is decreasing every time by one bead. Now I have my earring hook, and I'm just going to actually create a loop to hold my earring hook with some beads. So I'm going to grab 3 beads, and I'm actually going to go through, I'm going to go down bead, this bead, the left bead, pull, and now I created a loop, a little hoop. Now my bead is going, I'm sorry, my thread is going down. Now I'm going to go up and really just secure this loop probably 3 times. So I'm going to really thread through 3 times, trying to secure it. Just going back down, kind of creating a circle essentially. Landing in the same place, going back up. And I wouldn't do more than 3 times, 3 passes, because then the thread just becomes really thick in the bead. And sometimes when that happens and you really force the needle through the bead and it's already so jam-packed in there that the bead can break. So I really recommend 3 times and no more than that. And you'll feel it. You'll feel the tension when you're trying to pass through a bead and it just doesn't want to go through smoothly. And that's where you risk breaking the bead. I always tend to do the earring hook at the very end. So we're just going to do that at the end. Now, I finished looping through and securing the hoop. So I'm going to go choose a side, whichever side, doesn't matter which side. And I'm going to go down my piece. So I like to turn my piece kind of upside down and again, secure the thread over, hook it with my other finger. And so right now the thread is coming out down from this bead. And you're just going to go straight down on the side of your piece. And it's usually really easy just to do that since it's such a small piece. All right, so now we have finished the top portion of our earring. And now we're going to start on the bottom portion of the earring on the fringe part. Now this part, obviously, if you've designed a specific design for your bottom portion, you can follow, obviously. And sometimes I like to actually kind of bring down all the tension that sometimes builds in the thread and bring it back down. See how my piece just like turned a bunch of times? And so just pinching the thread, bringing the thread. And that really releases a lot of the tension on the thread. Okay, so now we're going to start on the fringe. And you might see that your piece might arch a little bit. So we're wanting to kind of create a straight line rather than an arch. So we're going to bring, you can really manually bring it down, bring the beads straight. You really want sharp edges for your top part. Now we're just going to grab a bunch of beads. I don't have a design in mind, but we can aim for maybe 50 beads. You kind of want a lengthy earring. I always like to kind of see how long that would be. I also like to count in threes. It's a lot faster instead of counting one by one. So I really like to count 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So that's already 18. And I also like to grab in 10 pairs, because it really just helps mathematically. And sometimes I forget and I have to recount everything over again. So yeah, I feel like grabbing in 10 is easier instead of grabbing like 20. I actually have 50, which is perfect. This is a good length in my opinion. Now, when you're done picking how many beads you want, you're going to kind of push the last bead a little bit down. And we're going to thread up this fringe. So I like to actually hold, kind of have like my finger be an anchor down on the thread while I'm threading upward with my other hand. Because if you don't, again, it's going to be really hard to go up. So you want to kind of anchor and put a weight on the thread. You want to go far up as much as the needle can let you, and then pull these beads downward while holding onto the needle. Now we're going to, again, anchor down with the finger, weave through, and now grab the needle and bring the beads down. You're going to pull while you're gripping onto one bead. So let's say I'm gripping onto the last bead. I'm going to pull my thread outward away from me, and just naturally all the beads are going to start going closer to the piece. Now I'm going to bring my hand again, grab this bead. I'm grabbing the last bead right here. It's kind of like you're going opposite directions, and with that opposite direction, all the beads will come up. You don't even have to do anything. You just pull opposite directions. And that's it. Now your beads are fully up. Now you want to really make sure, pull pull opposite directions. That way all the beads are really nicely together and there's no gaps. Now, you'll want to grab your piece and your thread will go up the bead because that's how we secure this fringe in place. And that's how you have a fringe. Now you'll just do that for every single bead. And then this bead, the thread is coming up this bead, and so you'll go down the next bead. And you'll restart that whole process again. Now sometimes when you don't secure your thread really well, you'll have gaps right here which do not look good. So you really want to make sure, but not pulling too tight, because if you pull too tight on this thread, then it gets really crinkly and stiff. So you want to have you want to find a middle point. You can even roll out the beads like this where it feels like it's going to flow and there's still no gaps. I'm going to add 2 beads to this design. So this one I have 50. This next one I'm going to have 52. It just kind of creates this really beautiful cascade effect. And if you want even a longer earring, you can add 4 or 5 beads every time you start a new fringe. And yes, it is a little bit longer, but that's, it could just be fun. That's the thing about weaving. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect numbers all the time. Obviously, if the pattern asks of you to have a certain number of beads to create the pattern, then yes, follow that. But the fringe part is very forgiving. You can have a lot of fun on the bottom portion of the earring. It's just such a cool part. You can create designs, flowers. You can just really have so much freedom in the bottom portion. We're going to have 9 fringe long pieces, and the brown is kind of the middle point. And so my next bead that I'm going to thread will actually be 59. So I stop increasing after this middle point because you want it to have kind of a mirror effect, right? I am on the last fringe, and I just want to show you all how to finish the earring off. Remember, you're going to pull, and we have this earring finished. So basically, you're going to go up the main foundational bead, and you still have this little thread. Don't even pay attention to it yet. You're gonna be able to hide it in the piece. But we really want this piece to be secured. So firstly, I always like to recommend to lift the earring and see if there's any gaps right around here. If there are, you just have to tighten some thread a little bit more. So we're gonna go up some beads. This part is basically securing the last strand. So you're going to be securing it, and this one can be very random. You can go into any bead of the foundation, the top part of the beads. So right now we're just climbing up the beads. I'm going to go into some random beads. This is really securing. You're going to go maybe looping, circling a few beads. Plus, this adds even more structure and strength to your top portion of your earring. I really try to do like straight lines across, or yeah, you don't have to loop it around every single, you don't have to double loop around every single beads. But this is just really all about securing. And alright, so here in this part we can pause. This is basically where we're going to have a knot happen, and then we'll trim off the thread. But I always like to really be with my piece that I just took time with. And I always like to have an intention for this piece before I tie the knot. Maybe more presence, more groundingness, more vitality, creativity. Then we're going to go ahead and tie the knot. I always like to double tie knots. So we're going to create a loop. And I'm going to go through the needle with the needle one time and through it again. Now I'm going to really try to bring this little bit all the way down to the edge of the beads, so that the knot is right next to the bead. I'm still holding on to the loop. I basically just dragged and made a knot right there. So now I'm going to hold down pressure with my finger on top of the knot, and I'm just going to pull with my other hand the thread out until there's a knot. And now we're going to go down a bead just so that knot can get hidden. You always want to go down or up, not across, because when you go down or up a bead, the knot can snugly, like the knot can really fit inside a bead. And that's it. So then we're going to go ahead and trim. You really want to pull strongly upward with your fingers on the thread and pushing down with the little snippers. You want to create that tension, that way there's no excess thread. Now with the little tail that we had, go ahead and thread through the needle, and I'm just going to come back up. That way we can hide the tail. And maybe I can go a little bit higher this time than the other time. And I'm going to go down. Also note, I never want to trim the thread on the outside beads, because then it'll just look really weird. Just don't recommend it. So always trim the thread inside, the beads that are inside, never the ones that are outside. And so here I'm kind of creating loops. I'm going in all different directions, and I don't have to tie a knot on this one. This one won't come apart. Again, pulling the thread upward and then pushing downward to cut. All right, we finished the piece. So now with the earring hook, you can kind of see a little bit of the threading, very little, but you can definitely see it. Now if we turn it on the other side, you can barely see any thread. So this is clearly going to be the front side of the earring. And so I'm going to get the pliers. I'm going to open my earring hook, this little circle here, down here,
slightly just turn it. And this will be the front side of the earring hook. So we really want to match that. Front side of the earring with the front side of the hook. And there we go. So very easy to do it that way. And then it just falls into place really easily. And then go ahead and close. Now, if you feel like the fringe of your earring is a little wonky, like this one's a little bit weird, the rest are really nice. I'm just gonna go ahead and roll out the beads downward very softly. This really helps loosen the thread and create a softer fringe. And we don't want any like weird. So now it really flows nicely, but it's a lot better than what it was. There's your earring.